everyone, welcome to Medical Monday. So last month I was flown up to New York with about a dozen other bloggers and influencers to be part of a focus group that was to talk about menopause. And it was really interesting. It was very eye-opening. And the whole focus of this video is actually not menopause. It's a very tiny part of this video, and it's going to be towards the end. So if you are not in menopause and you're not interested in any of that, that's okay. When you get to that part, you can click out. But I think it's important, whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're 18 years old, 25, 35, 55, I think you should stay and listen to everything I'm about to say because I think it's important, and I'll get to why. But the most interesting and really educational part of the experience was they had an actual doctor, an OBGYN, come and talk to the group about menopause. It was so fascinating, educational, and eye-opening. I took a ton of notes, and I want to go over it because while some of it pertained to the specific topic of menopause, the vast majority of stuff I learned had to do more about your health, how to be your best health advocate, and how to get the most out of your experience going to the doctor's office, which I think is huge and can apply to any kind of physical medical condition, even if it's just your annual checkup. So let's jump into it, and hopefully I can stay on topic and present this in an organized fashion. But if you've watched me for a long time, you know that's just absolutely not going to happen. Okay, so whether you are a man or woman or what have you, you need to go to the doctor for whatever reason, whether it's an annual checkup, whether you're taking your children to their annual physicals, whether it's your regular OBGYN checkup, whether you're there for a sick visit, whatever, at some point in your life, you're going to visit a doctor, a healthcare provider. I shouldn't just narrow it down to a doctor. You're going to see a healthcare provider. And I don't know about you, but more often than not, for me, it becomes a frustrating experience. I feel like it's rushed. I feel like I am not heard. Many times I feel like we've missed the whole point of the visit. My questions aren't answered. My concerns aren't addressed. I leave frustrated. I don't know how the doctor feels about the whole thing. It just doesn't go as planned. And I learned how to maybe fix that, how to make it a little bit better. So I'm gonna just read through my notes and share with you some of the points, some of the tips that this doctor shared with me because it was amazing. First of all, I'm really only going to be speaking from the experience of someone that lives in the United States and someone who's dealing with the healthcare system that is set up here, the way it's formed by the insurance companies here in the United States. I'm not gonna get into the politics of it. It is what it is. This is the system we're dealing with. So the insurance companies, from what I understand, basically sort of set the guidelines as to how long a doctor has to visit with you. I'm sure from speaking to my friends who are physicians, if it were up to them, they would spend as much time as you needed and as much time as they could give you. But generally speaking, insurance companies pay out or bill out at 15 minutes per patient. And at the same time, most physicians, their specialties give them huge pages, checklists of things that they're supposed to go over with a patient, like pages and pages of things you're supposed to go through at every visit. Those two don't line up. It's physically impossible to accomplish all the things a doctor wants to go over with you in the 15 minutes that the insurance company allots to them. It just doesn't mesh. So how do you fix this conundrum? So the first thing is when you make the appointment. It starts with what you tell the person you're making the appointment, the receptionist, if you will, what you tell them. You know, a lot of times they'll say, well, what is the reason? They'll ask you, what's the reason for the appointment? And I never understood it, and I always got a little huffy, like, well, it's none of your business. It absolutely is their business. You don't have to go into great personal detail. But if you give them the general nature of what the appointment is for, that can help them figure out how much time to allot or to prep the doctor so they have the right materials in place. It helps the doctor or the healthcare provider, if I slip and say doctor instead of healthcare provider, just please know that I mean in general, whomever you are seeing. It helps them know how to be prepared to make the most of the visit. So please don't take it personally when they ask what is the nature of the visit or why are you making this appointment. It's to help them be most prepared to make the most of the time that they have with you. So that's the first tip that she gave me. Tell them the major area of concern, the reason for the appointment. However, if you're not comfortable speaking to the receptionist, ask to speak to the nurse or a nurse practitioner to go into a little more detail with them as to the nature of your visit. That's a perfectly acceptable thing to do as well. Another thing that you're going to want to do, if you kind of have a general idea of what's going on, I've learned to do this, especially with my son Shane, who we know that, and with me, myself, with my thyroid condition, I know there are labs involved with my checkups when I go to see my endocrinologist. So I know to request that they put in the order for the lab work before I go in to see my doctor, and to go get that lab work done before I go in to see my doctor, so that when I go to my doctor's appointment, they have the lab results, so we're not wasting time. Hi, nice to see you. We don't know what's going on because we don't have your lab results yet. So make sure that when you make that appointment, if you know that there will be lab tests needed, that you get those requests for lab orders submitted far enough in advance before your appointment, so you have time to go get your lab work and get those results sent into the doctor before your actual appointment. Something you might also want to consider, if you think you're going to need more time with the healthcare provider than 15 minutes, consider an alternative to a medical doctor. These are considered physician extenders. Consider making an appointment with a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant. Many times they can do many of the same functions as an MD, but they can see you for longer than the 15 minutes. And so you won't feel as rushed. Or like in the instance of, for me, I go to an OBGYN, but I'm done with the OB part of the practice. We are closed for business. There will be no more babies coming from me. So I don't need the OB side, but there's always that possibility when I go in to see my gynecologist that she is going to be delayed or need to cancel my appointment or rush out of my appointment if somebody goes into labor. So an idea, if I want to avoid that step, because it's very hard where I live to find someone who is just a gynecologist, is to make an appointment with the nurse practitioner or the physician's assistant instead. They're not going to be delivering any babies, so I don't need to worry that they're going to miss my appointment or rush out of my appointment to go deliver a baby. So that's just an idea that you might want to consider. Make an appointment instead of with an MD with a nurse practitioner or physician's assistant. Now, you've made your appointment, you've done your lab work, now it's up to you to be prepared, do your homework. You need to know what it is you want to talk to your doctor, your healthcare provider about. So come in with it on paper or have it in your phone if you're a phone kind of person. I like it written out because if your phone crashes, you're gonna panic or whatever. So have all your medications, the dosages, how often you take them, have that all written out. If you have the top 2-3 things you want to talk about, don't come in with like a whole page, an essay, like a letter that you want to read. They don't have the time for that. They can't hear that. Don't assume that they have had time to sit and read your entire medical history, go through your whole file. It's not fair. It's not reasonable to assume that. Come in, like I said, come prepared with the list of medications in hand and the top 2 or 3 things that you want to address with them. If you have a very complicated medical history, get some bullet points ready just to go through those boom, boom, boom really quickly. And then if you know that you have a lot that you want to discuss or that there's going to be a lot to discuss, schedule a follow-up appointment. That is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. Your doctor may suggest to do that, but they may not. So just have that as a suggestion for them. I'm sure they would appreciate it too. Just remember, doctors are people. They care. Obviously, they went into this profession because they care deeply about people and about their health. They want to do right by you. Make the suggestion if they don't come up with it themselves. Offer the idea of a follow-up appointment. Most insurance companies will, it'll be a small copay or office visit copay, and then you'll have more time to go into more depth and discuss what it is that is your concern. I know these are all common sense things. I thought of none of them until this woman, this doctor that came to speak to us, laid it all out. These are genius. How did I not think of these? So you may already know all of these and you are way ahead of me, but in case you haven't, I just wanted to lay it all out there. I thought this was just incredibly helpful. So hopefully this will help some of you, any of you, one of you. I just thought that I would share that because that was the highlight of my trip. Now let's jump to the menopause section. And if I'm losing some of you, I hope you reconsider and stick around because even if you are not a woman, even if you're not going into menopause, you are going to be around someone who is a woman who will be in menopause, or if you are a woman, you will be in menopause, hopefully, at some point in your life. And I say hopefully because that means you have lived long enough to enter menopause. So I feel like it's important that you stick around and hear this next bit. So don't go anywhere. Okay, so here's what this discussion is not gonna be. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you how to fix it, how to make it better. It's the best thing ever. It's the worst thing ever. Like I said, I'm not a medical doctor, and even medical doctors, they all have their own opinion. If you get 2 doctors in here, they're going to give you 4 different opinions. That's not what this is. And I really hope in the comments that it doesn't turn into this whole, this is what you should do and this is how I got through it. No. What this is what I learned when I was up in New York learning about this whole concept. So the first thing I learned, which you could have knocked me over with a feather when this got dumped on me, I always thought that menopause referred to that period of time when you transition from being a woman who menstruates to a woman who doesn't. And that's a period of, I don't know, like a handful of years, right? That could include the perimenopause, where you're like starting to show the symptoms of your body not menstruating anymore, to the period where it just, you're done. Uterus is closed for business, we're done. No, apparently that is not the medical definition of menopause. According to the obstetrician gynecologist who came and spoke to us, menopause is the period of time from when you start transitioning from a menstruating woman until you die. So it's roughly a third of your life. I was like, what? Hang on, what? So if you think about it, most of us will spend the majority, a good portion of our lives in menopause. If we're lucky, I mean, technically, right? I mean, the goal is to live a very long life. And I think it's, again, only speaking from my experience as being raised in the United States in public schools, we have health classes in middle school, or back in my day it was junior high, and in high school about puberty and adolescence and the human body going through, you know, growing up and going through puberty and the reproductive cycle. We learn about, as young ladies, we learn about menstruation and how to get, actually not how to get pregnant, how to not get pregnant was more like how we, you know, we learned about pregnancy and reproduction and getting your period and not getting pregnant and how babies are born. And then that's the end of sexual health and reproduction education. It just stops. And I think it's interesting that we're covering a period of time that's roughly, you know, the onset of puberty to childbirth is a small window compared to 30, 40, 50 years of menopause. And, you know, young men, boys and girls get that education. Boys learn about what happens to the female body as well. And then it's over. And as women, we aren't taught what to expect after that. And, you know, it's only whispered about or anecdotally referred to in movies and books, or, you know, aunts and mothers or grandmothers refer to it vaguely, but we're not given a formal education. I'm 45. At my 40-year-old gynecological visit, my doctor didn't set me down and tell me, here's what's coming down the road. Like, I have not gotten a heads up in a formal educational sense at all. And all the men I know, well, it's not like I've asked them, but the one man I can ask comfortably, my husband, certainly has no idea what's coming either, only knows from, you know, pop culture what to expect, which is probably not accurate at all. I think, you know, we're led to believe that we are going to be hormonally crazy, bitter, angry women. Actually, I don't know if that's any different than how I currently am. So it's kind of nuts, isn't it? So that's why I think it's important to have this discussion. I'm not suddenly campaigning that we should change formal public education to add menopause to the sex education portion of public health, but maybe we should. I just wanted to add that to this discussion. Like, maybe it's time we change the discussion and add to the conversation. Be that as it may, that's a whole different thing. But the one thing that I found was interesting is that there isn't a lot of education out there. And even our OBGYNs, most of them are not formally trained on the specific area of menopause and all that goes into that. The only advice that I wanted to share with you from the gynecologist that came to speak to us is that there are doctors that are board certified or have a special certification in, I don't want to say the treatment of menopause because it makes it sound like it's some sort of horrible medical condition, but in the area of menopause, and you can find a doctor in your area that has gone through this extra education and extra accreditation. If you go to this website it's through the North American Menopause Society, and it's menopause.org, and I'll put it in the description box below. And I did that, like literally whipped out my phone in the middle of the conversation and started Googling. And so I found only three doctors in the San Antonio metro area, only one of whom is in my insurance plan. But I just thought it was an interesting thing. They're more, they have extra hours, extra training, extra education in the specific area of menopause and the hormones and the symptoms and all, they're more up to speed on the newest research and all that stuff. And, I think it's worth looking into. If you're happy with where you are in your reproductive health and your gynecologist, that's all good. I just wanted to give you one more option to look into if that's where you are. So that's my little tidbit on menopause. I told you I wasn't going to go into like great depth and treatments and all that stuff. That's all very individual, and that's a discussion between you and your doctor. And there's all kinds of doctors. There's a traditional gynecologist, OBGYN, reproductive health specialist, endocrinologists. The list goes on and on. It was very interesting. It's a difficult time of life for a lot of people because the symptoms mimic other conditions. It can be a very easy time of life. It was interesting. We did this thing where we had to talk about our perceptions, and a lot of the women were older than me and had already started going into it or were well into menopause and said it turned out to be a very freeing experience for them. So that's a whole different video and a whole different discussion. I met some women who had 0 symptoms. I met some women who had every symptom. So it's all it's like us. We're all different people, so we're all going to come with our own experiences. But I just thought it'd be nice to get the conversation going and make it not a taboo thing anymore, because it's just like everything else in life. It just is. It's just another stage of life. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, and it's nothing to be shamed about or shameful about. It's just who we are. It's just something the body naturally does, or in this case, stops doing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought about this. Be kind, please. And I will see you on Wednesday with a really fun video about the Nordstrom anniversary sale, and I really urge you to watch that whole video from beginning to end. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.